8th Standard English, Unit 3, Prose, Sir Isaac Newton, the ingenious scientist. So, today we are going to see about the scientist Sir Isaac Newton. Okay, shall we go for the lesson now? So, this is the reading part, section 1. Read the following passage or Sir Isaac Newton. On Christmas Day in the year 1642, Sir Isaac Newton was born at the small village of Woolsthorpe in England. Little did his mother think, when she beheld her newborn babe, that he was destined to explain many matters which had been a mystery ever since the creation of the world. Sir Isaac's father being dead, Mrs. Newton was married again to clergyman and went to reside at North Witham. Isaac was left to the care of his good old grandmother, who was very kind to him and sent him to school. In his early years, Isaac was chiefly remarkable for his ingenuity in all mechanical occupations. He had a set of little tools and saws of various sizes manufactured by himself. With the aid of these, Isaac contrived to make many curious articles, at which he worked it with so much skill that he seemed to have been born with a saw or chisel in his hand. The neighbors looked with vast admiration at the things which Isaac manufactured, and his old grandmother, I suppose, was never weary of talking about him. He'll make a capital workman on these days. One of these days, she'll probably say, no fear but what Isaac will do well in the world and be a rich man before he dies. Some of his friends, no doubt, advised Isaac's mother to apprentice him to a clockmaker, for besides his mechanical skill, the boy seemed to have a taste for mathematics which would be very useful to him in that profession. And then in due times Isaac would set up for himself and would manufacture curious clocks like those that contain sets of dancing figures which issue from the dial plate when the hours is struck, or like those where a ship sails across the faces of the clock and is seen tossing up and down on the waves as often as the pendulum vibrates. Indeed, there was a good ground for supposing that Isaac would devote himself to the manufacture of clocks, since he had already made one of a kind which nobody had ever heard of before. It was set a-going not by wheels and weights like other clocks, but by the dropping of water. This was an object of great wonderment to all the people in the neighborhood, and it must be confessed that there are a fewer boys or men either who could contrive to tell what o'clock it is by means of a bowl of water. Besides the water clock, Isaac made a sundial. Thus his grandfather was never at a loss to know the hour. For the water clock would tell it in the shade and the dial in sunshine. The sundial is said to be still in existence at Woolsthorpe, on the corner of the house where Isaac dwelt. Isaac supposed a wonderful faculty of acquiring knowledge by the simplest means. For instance, what method do you suppose he took to find out the strength of the mind? He jumped against the wind, and by the length of his jump, he could calculate the force of a gentle breeze, a brisk gale, or a tempest. Thus, even in his boyish sports, he was continually searching out the secrets of philosophy. Not far from his grandfather's residence, there was a windmill which operated on a new plan. Isaac was in the habit of going there frequently and would spend whole hours in explaining its various parts. While the windmill was at rest, he peered into its internal machinery when its broad sails were set in motion by the wind. He was the process by which the millstone was made to revolve and crush the grains that was put into the hopper. After gaining a thorough knowledge of its construction, he was observed by the unusually busy with his tools. It was not long before his grandmother and all the neighborhood knew what Isaac had been about. He had constructed a model of the windmill, though not so large, I suppose, as one of the box traps which boys set to catch squirrels. Yet every part of the mills and its machines was complete. Its little sails were neatly made of linen and wrinkled round very swiftly when the mill was placed in a draught of air. Even a puff of wind from Isaac's mouth or from a pair of bellows was sufficient to set the sails in motion. And what was most curious, if a handful of grains of wheat were put into the little hopper, they could be soon be converted into snow white flour. Isaac's playmates were enchanted with this new windmill. They thought that nothing was so pretty and so wonderful and had ever been in the whole world. But Isaac said, "One of them, you have forgotten one thing that belongs to the wind, to a mill." "What is that?" asked Isaac, for he supposed that from the roof of the windmill to its foundation he had forgotten nothing. "Why, where is the miller?" said his friend. "That is true. I took look out for one," said Isaac, and he set himself to consider how the deficiency should be supplied. He might easily have made the miniature figure of a man, but then it would not be able to move about and perform the duties of a miler. But perhaps some of two legs milers are quite be disappointed as a small quadruped. As Isaac grew older, it was found that he had far more important matters in his mind than the manufacture of toys like the little windmill. All day long, if left to himself, he was either absorbed in thoughts or engaged in some book of mathematics or natural philosophy. At night, I think it probably he looked up with reverential curiosity to the stars and wondered whether they were worlds like our ones, and how great was their distance from the earth, and what was the path that kept them in their courses. Perhaps even so early in life, Isaac Newton felt a presentiment that he should be able hereafter to answer all these questions. When Isaac was 14 years old, his mother, second husband being now dead, she wished her son leave school and assist her in managing the farm at Woolsthorpe. For a year or two, therefore, he tried to turn his attention to farming. But his mind was so bent in becoming a scholar that his mother sent him back to school and afterwards to the University of Cambridge. He was the first that found out the nature of light, for before his day nobody could tell what the sunshine was supposed to of until then. You remember, I suppose, the story of an apple falling on his head, which led him to discover the force of gravitation and keeps the heavenly bodies in their forces. When he had once got hold of his idea, he never permitted his mind to rest until he had searched out all the laws by which the planets are guided through the sky. This he did was thoroughly, as if he had gone up among the stars, tracked them in their orbits. As a boy, he had found out the mechanism of a windmill, and as a man, he explained to his fellow men the mechanism of the universe. While searching, he was accustomed to spend right after night in a lofty tower, gazing at the heavenly heavenly bodies through a telescope, His mind was lifted far above the things of this world. He may said indeed to have spent the greater part of his life in worlds that lie thousands and millions of miles away from far, where the thoughts and the heart are there is our true existence. Newton lived to be a very old man, renowned thinker, and was made a member of parliament and received the honor of knighthood from the king, but he cared little for earthly fame and honors and felt no pride in the vastness of his knowledge. All that he had learned only made him feel how little he knew in comparison to what remained to be known. I seemed to myself like a child, he observed, playing on the seashore and picking up here and there a curious shell or a pretty pebble, while the boundless oceans of truth lies undiscovered before me. At last, in 1727, when he was 85 years old, Isaac Newton died, or rather, he ceased to live on earth. We may be permitted to believe that he is still searching out the infinite wisdom and goodness of the Creator as earliness, and with even more success than while his spirit animated a mortal body. He has left a fame behind him which will be endurable as if his name were written in letters of light formed by the stars upon the midnight sky. I love to hear about mechanical contrivances such as water clock and the little windmill, remarked George. I suppose if Sir Isaac Newton had only thought of it, he may have found that the steam engine and railroads and all the other famous inventions that have come into use since his day. Very possibly, he might, replied Mr. Temple, and no doubt a great many people would think it more useful to manufacture steam engines than to search out the system of the universe. Other great astronomers besides Newton had been endowed with mechanical genius. There was David Rittenhouse, an American. He made a perfect little watermill when he was only 7 or 8 years old. But his sort of ingenuity is but a mere trifle in comparison with the other talents of such men.